My wife, Sarah, gave her sister Clara the diamond necklace, the one I bought for our 5-year anniversary. It was supposed to be a symbol, something special, a family heirloom someday, only it wasn't. She gave her a fake. The real one is right now in a safe deposit box at the bank, hidden away, perfectly safe. I know what you are thinking. Why a fake? Why did I even have a fake? And why would my wife give away something so important, even if it was real? The truth is, I don't know why she did it, not entirely. But I know why I had a fake. Because I had a feeling. A gut punch, really, that something wasn't right. And that feeling just got confirmed in the most brutal way possible. My wife, the woman I swore to spend my life with, gave away a fake version of the most precious gift I ever gave her. And she did it with a smile. It happened last week. Clara's birthday. Sarah insisted we do something big. Clara always expects a lot. She's the younger sister, and she's always been the one who gets spoiled. Sarah has always tried to make her happy. Almost too much, if you ask me. I've seen Clara demand things from Sarah, even expensive things, and Sarah usually caves. It's like a weird dynamic, almost like Clara holds something over Sarah, or Sarah just can't say no to her. I've tried to talk to Sarah about it, about setting boundaries, but she just brushes it off. Says it's family, that's how they are. So for Clara's birthday, Sarah suggested we take her out to a fancy dinner. And then she said she had the perfect gift. My heart hammered in my chest when she said it. I knew what she was talking about, even though she didn't say it aloud. The necklace. It's not just any necklace. It was a custom piece, specifically designed with Sarah in mind, with diamonds that reflected her birthstone and mine, intertwined. It cost me a fortune, more than I've ever spent on anything apart from our house. It was an investment in our love, a tangible piece of my devotion. I remember buying it, how nervous I was, how excited I was to see her face when I gave it to her. She cried when she saw it. Said it was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever given her. She wore it constantly for weeks, then less often, then only on special occasions. I didn't think anything of it. Life gets busy. You don't always wear your most expensive jewelry around the house. I trusted her. I trusted her completely. But then little things started to happen. Small things that chipped away at that trust, or at least made me question it. Nothing concrete, just a feeling. She started talking about money more, even though we're very comfortable. She'd mentioned Clara's financial struggles a lot, how hard it was for her, how she needed help. I offered to help Clara out financially, discreetly, if she was truly struggling. Sarah always said no, that Clara was too proud to accept help from me. But she might accept it from her. I found that odd. Why would she be too proud for my help, but not Sarah's? It didn't make sense. And then there was the day I came home early from work. Sarah was on the phone, her voice hushed. She quickly hung up when she heard me. She looked flustered. I asked who it was. She said it was just her mom asking about dinner plan. Her mom never calls at that time of day, and her voice had sounded so secretive. I let it go. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I trusted my wife, but the seed was planted. And then the idea of the fake came to me. It wasn't because I actively suspected her of something terrible. It was more like an insurance policy, a quiet test. I remembered a documentary I saw about people protecting their valuables. It suggested keeping a high-quality replica of very expensive pieces. That way, if something happened, if it got lost or stolen, you wouldn't lose the real thing. It sounded smart, and it gave me an idea. I found a jeweler who specialized in replicas. It wasn't cheap, but it was a fraction of the original cost. They used cubic zirconia instead of diamonds, but the setting and the gold were identical. Even to my trained eye, it was almost impossible to tell the difference without close inspection or a proper test. I switched them out one afternoon when Sarah was out. The real one went into a secure safe, and then later into the bank's safe deposit box under my name. No one knew about it. Not Sarah, not anyone. It felt a little strange, a little deceitful, but I told myself it was for protection, for our future. I didn't want to lose something so valuable, and I figured a fake could always replace the real one for everyday wear, just in case. But deep down, I think a part of me, a very small, dark part, wanted to see if she would ever notice, or if she would ever try to do something with it. I hated myself for even thinking that way about my wife, but the thought was there. And now, seeing her give the fake to Clara, I feel sick to my stomach. My gut was right. The scale of it, the coldness of it is just crushing me. She packaged it beautifully in the original velvet box. Clara gasped when she opened it. "Oh my God, Sarah, is this it? The necklace?" she shrieked. Sarah just beamed. "Of course, Clary. Only the best for my favorite sister." She winked at me, and I forced a smile back. It felt like my face was going to crack. I watched Clara put it on. She held it up to the light, admiring it. "It's so much more beautiful in person," she said. "I can't believe you gave me this, Sarah." Sarah shrugged, a casual gesture that belied the monumental value of the gift she was pretending to give. "You deserve it, sis. You've always been there for me." My stomach churned. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab the necklace and smash it. I wanted to grab Sarah and shake her and demand to know what the hell she was doing. But I couldn't. Not then, not there. I had to play along. I had to watch as Clara fawned over a piece of jewelry that was essentially worthless, while the woman I loved pretended to be generous with something that wasn't even hers to give. The original, the true symbol of our love, was locked away, untouched by her hands, by her deception. And now I have to figure out what to do, because this isn't just about a necklace. This is about trust. This is about who my wife really is, and it's tearing me apart. The real necklace. I remember the day I bought it like it was yesterday. It was 2 years ago, leading up to our 5th anniversary. I wanted something unforgettable, something that wasn't just pretty, but had meaning. Sarah loves jewelry, but she's always been about sentimentality, not just the sparkle. I spent months researching jewelers, sketching designs, trying to capture her essence. I wanted something that spoke to our journey, our love story. I settled on a reputable high-end jeweler, someone known for custom pieces. I worked with their designer, a quiet, older woman named Eleanor, who seemed to understand exactly what I was trying to articulate, even when I couldn't find the words. We settled on a design that incorporated delicate intertwining strands of white and rose gold, representing our 2 lives merging. At the center, a cluster of diamonds, a larger central stone, flawless and brilliant, symbolizing our core love. Around it, smaller diamonds, carefully selected, a sapphire for Sarah's birthstone, an emerald for mine. These weren't just random gems, they were specific top-grade stones. The price tag was astronomical, I mean truly eye-watering. It was the kind of money you spend only once, for something utterly perfect and timeless. It required liquidating some investments, but I didn't care. It was for Sarah. For us. When it was finished, it was even more beautiful than I had imagined. It caught the light in a way that made it seem alive. The craftsmanship was exquisite. I picked it up in person, my hands trembling slightly as I held the velvet box. I kept it hidden for weeks. the anticipation building. Our anniversary dinner was perfect. I remember the look on Sarah's face when I presented the box. Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. She whispered, "It's magnificent." She put it on immediately, her fingers tracing the delicate setting. She wore it every day for a month. She'd often hold it, just feeling the weight of it, the smoothness of the gold. It made me feel like the most successful man in the world, not because of the money it cost, but because of the pure joy it brought her. Then, as I mentioned, she started wearing it less. She'd be on her phone late at night, whispering. She'd get defensive if I asked about it. She started spending more time with Clara, which wasn't unusual, but the frequency increased, and Sarah would often seem stressed after these visits. Clara, Sarah's sister, is a complicated person. She's younger, by about 5 years, and she's always been a bit of a free spirit, which often translated into irresponsibility. She's had a string of bad jobs, bad relationships, and always seems to be in some kind of financial bind. Sarah, being the older, more responsible sister, has always felt a strong obligation to help her. I've seen Sarah give Clara money more times than I can count, always insisting it's just a loan. But the loans are rarely paid back. I've always tried to be supportive, knowing family's important to Sarah, but sometimes I felt Clara took advantage. Clara has this way of making Sarah feel guilty, of twisting things to make Sarah feel like she owes her something. One evening, I overheard a snippet of a conversation. Sarah was on the phone with Clara. Clara was crying, saying something about needing a lot of money, urgently, for a huge problem. Sarah sounded frantic, trying to reassure her. Clara then said, "Just sell it then, Sarah. You said it was worth a fortune. No one would even know." Sarah cut her off, whispering fiercely, "No, Clara, I can't. He'd kill me. It means too much to him." The line went dead a moment later, and Sarah spun around, startled to see me standing there. She mumbled something about Clara having a bad day and she had to go. She rushed off, leaving me standing there, my mind reeling. Sell it. What was Clara talking about selling? And what did it mean too much to me? The only thing that fitted that description, something expensive and meaningful, was the necklace. That's when the idea of the replica took root. It wasn't a grand plan of deception, it was a desperate attempt to protect something I cherished, and a quiet way to test a growing, uncomfortable suspicion. I found a local jeweler, through a friend who sometimes dealt with high-end replicas for security reasons. I brought him a photo of the necklace and explained that I wanted an exact visual match. Even if the stones were fake, he understood immediately. He didn't ask questions, which I appreciated. The replica took about 2 months to create. When it was ready, I compared it to the real one. It was astounding. To the naked eye, they were identical. The weight was similar. The sparkle, though not the deep, internal fire of a true diamond, was convincing enough. The craftsmanship on the setting was perfect. The switch was simple. One Saturday morning, Sarah was out with her friends. I went to her jewelry box, took out the real necklace, careful to handle it with gloves, and put the replica in its place. The real one, still in its original velvet box, went into a small, nondescript safe I had bought specifically for this purpose. I hid the safe in the back of my closet, beneath a pile of old clothes, hoping I'd never need to move it again. A few days later, I transferred the real necklace to a secure safe deposit box at the bank. It felt safer there, away from the house, away from any potential threat, or, more disturbingly, away from Sarah herself. I hated myself for doing it. I felt like a spy in my own home, a detective investigating my own wife. It went against everything I believed in about marriage, about trust. But the alternative, the gnawing fear, the whispers I'd overheard, was becoming unbearable. I told myself it was just a precaution, a safety net, a way to ease my mind, and for a while it worked. The fear subsided. I stopped wondering if the necklace was safe. Told myself I was being ridiculous, that Sarah would never do anything like that. The incident with Clara's phone call faded into the background. I even convinced myself that perhaps Clara was talking about something else entirely. Some other valuable possession that I didn't know about. I let myself believe that my wife was beyond reproach. Until Clara's birthday. Until I watched Sarah, with her kind smile and her gentle eyes, hand over that fake necklace to her sister. She didn't hesitate. She didn't show a flicker of guilt. She was just cheerful. And that's when I knew. My gut feeling, the one I tried so hard to silence, was right. And the weight of that knowledge, the certainty of her deception, was almost unbearable. The precious gift, the symbol of our love, was safe. But the love itself, the trust, felt suddenly terrifyingly vulnerable. The birthday dinner for Clara was at a trendy new restaurant downtown. Sarah had booked a private room, wanting it to be special. Clara was already there when we arrived, dressed to the nines, clearly expecting a big production. She hugged Sarah tightly, then gave me a more reserved greeting. Clara and I have always been polite, but this here is an underlying tension, a sense of competition for Sarah's attention. I try to be supportive, but Clara often acts entitled to Sarah's generosity. We settled in, ordering drinks and appetizers. Sarah was in high spirits, laughing, making jokes. She kept glancing at the gift bag sitting on the chair beside her, a knowing smile playing on her lips. I could feel my heart thumping against my ribs. I kept my expression neutral, trying to appear relaxed, engaged in the conversation. It was hard. Every word felt like a lie, every smile a betrayal. Clara, of course, brought up gifts almost immediately. "So, Sarah, did you get me anything good?" she teased. But her eyes held a serious glint. It was less a joke and more a demand. Sarah chuckled. "You'll see, Clary. Just wait till dessert." She stretched out the suspense, enjoying being the center of attention, the generous provider. The meal felt like an eternity. I ate mechanically, barely tasting the expensive food. My mind was racing, trying to anticipate Sarah's next move, trying to understand her motivations. Was this just a cheap trick? Was she desperate? Or was there something darker, colder at play? Finally, dessert arrived. And then the moment of truth. Sarah reached for the gift bag. She pulled out the velvet box, the exact same one the real necklace had come in. My stomach dropped. Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "No way," she whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief, or maybe greedy anticipation. Sarah's smile was wide and genuine, or at least it looked genuine. "Happy birthday, little sis," she said, her voice soft and loving. "I know how much you've admired this. I want you to have it." Clara carefully opened the box, her eyes fixated on the sparkling contents. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Sarah, is this the one? The diamond necklace?" Sarah nodded, her eyes shining. "The very one. It's yours now." Clara reached in, her fingers trembling slightly as she lifted the necklace. She held it up, letting it catch the dim restaurant lights. The cubic zirconia glittered convincingly. It looked almost as good as the real thing in that light. Almost. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought everyone in the room could hear it. I wanted to vomit. Clara immediately turned to me, her face flushed with excitement. "Look, John, isn't it incredible? Sarah gave me her diamond necklace." I forced a smile, a hollow, empty gesture. "Beautiful, Clara," I managed to say, my voice sounding strained even to my own ears. I tried to inject some warmth, some congratulations, but it felt like sandpaper in my throat. I couldn't meet Sarah's eye. I was afraid of what she would see there, or what I would see in hers. Clara then struggled to fasten the clasp herself. "Can you help me put it on, Sarah?" Sarah leaned over, her fingers deftly working the clasp. As she did, I watched her face. There was no flicker of doubt, no hint of guilt, no secret smirk. Just pure, unadulterated pleasure in Clara's delight. It was disturbing. It was as if she genuinely believed she was giving away the real thing. Or perhaps it didn't matter to her one bit that it was fake. That it meant nothing to her that she was passing off a replica of a gift I had given her, a gift meant for her, to someone else. Clara admired herself in the reflection of her phone screen. "I can't believe it. I mean, it must be worth a fortune." "Are you sure, Sarah? Are you sure you want to give me something so valuable?" There was a hint of avarice in her voice, but also, surprisingly, a touch of genuine disbelief. Sarah waved a dismissive hand. "Don't be silly, Clary. What's mine is yours. Besides, it's just a necklace. The sentimental value is more important, right?" She glanced at me when she said that, and I felt a jolt of ice in my veins. Was that a dig? A subtle taunt? Or was it just a truly oblivious remark? I couldn't tell. I took a sip of water, trying to compose myself. I felt like I was watching a play, a performance where I was an unwilling participant. My wife, the lead actress, was delivering a convincing performance of generosity. But I, the only one in the audience with full knowledge, knew it was a cruel charade. The rest of the evening was a blur. Clara kept touching the necklace, showing it off to the waiter, to anyone who walked past. She talked about how she'd always wanted something like it, how she never thought she'd own anything so expensive. Sarah listened patiently, occasionally interjecting with a proud comment. Every time Clara mentioned the diamonds or the value, I felt a fresh wave of nausea. On the drive home, Sarah was still buzzing. Wasn't Clara so happy? She truly loved it. I think it was the best birthday present she's ever received. I kept my eyes on the road. "She certainly seemed pleased," I said, my voice flat. Sarah didn't seem to notice. "I am just so glad I could do that for her. She's been through so much lately. She really needed a lift." "A lift? By giving her a fake diamond necklace worth almost nothing?" The thought was infuriating. I wanted to pull over, shut off the engine, and just sit there in the dark until she explained herself. But I held back. I knew this wasn't the time or place. I needed to think. I needed to understand. That night, lying next to her in bed, I couldn't sleep. She was sound asleep, peaceful, as if she had done nothing wrong. But I knew, and the knowledge felt like a lead weight in my chest. The beautiful, meaningful necklace I had given her, the one that represented our love, had been replaced by a worthless copy. And she had given that copy away as a grand gesture, a performance of generosity that was built on a lie. It wasn't just about the money or the diamonds. It was about the integrity of our relationship. It was about the depth of her deception, and it was heartbreaking. Truly, utterly heartbreaking. The days following Clara's birthday were a blur of fake normalcy. I went to work, came home, cooked dinner, watched television with Sarah. We talked about our day, made plans for the weekend. But underneath it all, a cold, hard knot of suspicion and dread tightened in my stomach. Every word Sarah spoke, every gesture she made, I analyzed, trying to find a crack in her composure, a tell that would reveal her true motives. She seemed completely oblivious to my internal turmoil. She was cheerful, relieved almost, as if a great burden had been lifted from her shoulders. This only made me feel worse. Was she truly so unfeeling that she could pull off such a deception and then sleep soundly at night? Or was she just a master of disguise? I started paying closer attention to her habits. I noticed she spent more time on her phone, always taking it with her to another room if I walked in. She was more secretive about her finances, even though we had always been open about our joint accounts. She'd say things like, "Oh, I just transferred some money to my personal savings for that new dress I want." But she'd never done that before. It was always a joint decision, or at least a shared discussion. I also started thinking back, piecing together fragments of past conversations and incidents that, at the time, I'd dismissed. Remember that hushed phone call I overheard? Clara wanting Sarah to sell it? It made perfect chilling sense now. Clara must have been pressuring Sarah for money, and Sarah, instead of just saying no or giving her a loan, had resorted to this. But why the necklace? Why not something else? And why give away a fake? Was she trying to look generous without actually losing anything? Or was it more complicated? I started to feel like I didn't know the woman I was married. The Sarah I knew was kind, compassionate, sometimes a little naive, but always honest. She valued integrity. She always preached about being upfront, even when it was difficult. This act, this calculated deception, felt like it belonged to a stranger. One evening, I tried a subtle approach. We were sitting on the couch, watching a movie. Casually brought up a news story about a wealthy art collector who had been scammed, losing a valuable painting that turned out to be a replica. "Can you imagine?" I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Spending all that money and then finding out it's just a fake? How devastating that would be. Not just the money, but the trust. The feeling of being completely duped." Sarah just hummed, half listening. Yeah, that's terrible," she mumbled, eyes fixed on the screen. I pressed on, carefully. "It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How easy it must be for people to lie, to pretend something is real when it's not. What kind of person does that?" Sarah finally turned to me, a small frown on her face. "Well, a bad person, obviously. Someone dishonest." "Why are you so fixated on this, John?" "It's just a movie." She turned back to the screen. Her reaction was flat. No visible discomfort, no defensiveness. Just mild annoyance. It was unsettling. It almost made me doubt myself. Maybe she really didn't see the connection. Or maybe she was just that good at hiding it. The following day, I found myself going to the bank. I needed to see the real necklace, just to reassure myself it was still there, untouched, untainted. The bank manager knew me, and I quickly got access to my safe deposit box. There it was, nestled in its velvet case, sparkling under the small light. True weight of it, the incredible fire of the diamonds, was unmistakable. It felt solid, real, valuable. Holding it in my hands, I felt a fresh wave of despair. This beautiful object, meant to symbolize our enduring love, was now a painful reminder of a profound lie. I put it back carefully, locked the box, and walked out of the bank feeling heavier than when I went in. The proof was right there. My wife had given away a fake, knowing it was fake, and pretending it was real. The biggest heartbreak was the loss of innocence, the shattering of the image I had of my wife. I loved her truly. We had built a life together, shared dreams, supported each other through tough times. I thought I knew her completely, but this act of deception felt so out of character, so cold. It made me question everything. Was our whole marriage built on a foundation of unspoken truths, of things she hid from me? Had she always been this way, and I was just too blind to see it? I began to replay moments in our relationship. Times she had insisted on buying me an expensive watch that I didn't really need, saying she wanted to spoil me. Times she had been unusually generous with gifts for her family, even when we were just starting out and money was tighter. Was it all a performance? Was it all about looking good? Even if it meant being secretly dishonest? The thought was agonizing. I found myself becoming more withdrawn, quieter. Sarah noticed, of course. "Is everything okay, Hon?" she'd ask, her brow furrowed with concern. "You seem a little quiet lately." I'd just shrug. "Just tired, I guess. Long days at work." It was a lie. Another layer to the growing mound of untruths between us. And I hated it. I hated that her actions were forcing me to become someone I wasn't. Someone who harbored secrets from his wife. The situation felt like a ticking time bomb. Clara had the fake necklace. What if she decided to get it appraised? What if she tried to sell it? The thought made my blood run cold. The fallout would be catastrophic. Not just for Clara, who would be devastated and humiliated, but for Sarah, and for our marriage. I knew I couldn't let it go on much longer. I had to confront her, but how? And when? And what would I say? How do you even begin to address such a fundamental breach of trust without destroying everything? The uncertainty was suffocating. I felt like I was walking on eggshells constantly, on the verge of collapsing into a pile of shattered dreams. Call came 2 days later, not from Sarah, but from Clara. My phone buzzed while I was at work. I saw her name on the caller ID, and a jolt went through me. My stomach clenched. This was it. She's found out. She's going to expose everything. Took a deep breath, excusing myself from my desk, and stepped into an empty conference room. "Hey, Clara," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "John." "Hi." Her voice was surprisingly cheerful. No hint of anger or distress. My heart rate slowly started to come down. Maybe she hadn't found out yet. "I hope I am not bothering you at work." No, it's fine. What's up?" I tried to sound casual. "Well," she began, a slight hesitancy now in her voice. "I wanted to ask you something about the necklace Sarah gave me." My blood ran cold again. Here it was. "Oh," I managed. "Yeah, well, it's just so beautiful, right? I mean, like, ridiculously beautiful. Everyone I show it to just stares, and some of my friends, they're like, 'Clara, that must be worth a fortune.'" "Are those real diamonds?" She giggled a little too loudly. "And what do you tell them?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Well, I just say of course they are. My sister Sarah wouldn't give me anything less than the best." She paused, but it got me thinking. I mean, it's such a huge gift, and you know Sarah, she's so generous. But this is like next level generous. So I was thinking, maybe I should get it appraised. Just for insurance, you know? Like if something happened to it, I'd want to know its exact value for replacement. My mind raced. Insurance. An appraisal. This was exactly what I had feared. If she took it to a jeweler, they would immediately tell her it was a fake. Then what? Clara would be furious. She would confront Sarah, and then the truth would explode. That's a good idea, Clara, I said, trying to buy time, trying to figure out an angle. But you know, sometimes appraisals can be tricky and expensive. And honestly, for something like that, you don't really need a formal appraisal unless you are, like, trying to sell it or something. It's more about the sentiment, right? I tried to steer her away from it. Oh, I'd never sell it, she declared. It's from Sarah. It's so special, but still for insurance. Like, I wouldn't want to get it stolen and then find out it was actually worth way more than I thought. You know. Right, I said, my mind working furiously. But listen, Clara, that necklace is very personal to Sarah. It was a gift from me to her, and then she passed it on to you. It has a lot of sentimental value for our family. And honestly, I already had it appraised when I first bought it for Sarah, so I know the exact value. I can give you the appraisal certificate if you want it for insurance purposes. That way, you don't have to go through the hassle of finding an appraiser yourself, and you'll know exactly what it's worth. It was a risky move. I was essentially offering her the appraisal for the real necklace, knowing she had the fake. But it was the only way I could think of to prevent her from taking the fake to a jeweler and discovering the truth immediately. If she had the certificate, she might be satisfied and not bother with an actual appraisal. It was a terrible lie, but it felt like the lesser of two evils at the moment. Clara was quiet for a moment. Oh, really? You already had it appraised? That's so thoughtful, John. Yes, please. That would be amazing. Then I wouldn't have to worry about a thing. Relief washed over me, brief and precarious. No problem at all, Clara. I'll dig it out. It's probably in some old files. I'll text you when I find it. You are the best, John, she chirped. Thanks so much. And thanks again for everything. Tell Sarah again how much I love the necklace. Will do, Clara. Talk soon. I hung up, my hand trembling slightly. I felt like I had just defused a bomb, but the timer was still running. I had bought myself some time, but I had also dug myself deeper into the lie. Now, I had to produce an appraisal certificate for a necklace she didn't possess. I could forge one, but that was another level of deception I wasn't comfortable with. Or I could give her the real certificate. But then if the real necklace ever came into question, the documents would trace back to me. It was a mess. I sat there staring at the empty wall, my head in my hands. This whole situation was spiraling out of control. Sarah's one act of deception had created a chain reaction of lies, and I was now complicit. I hated it. I hated the secrecy, the tension, the feeling of constantly walking on eggshells. This call from Clara reinforced one thing. I couldn't let this go on. I couldn't continue living with this giant secret hanging over my head, or watching my wife perpetuate a lie that could explode at any moment. I had to confront Sarah, soon, before Clara got suspicious again, before she stumbled upon the truth on her own. But the thought of confronting Sarah filled me with dread. What would she say? How would she react? Would she deny it? Would she deny it? Would she deny it? Would she get angry? Would she break down? And what would I do after that? Could I ever look at her the same way? Could I ever trust her again? The heartbreak was already deep, but I knew the full truth, whatever it was, would shatter me completely. It was time to rip off the band-aid. Peace and quiet I had tried to maintain in our home felt like a fragile glass, about to be dropped and irrevocably broke. That night, I decided to try one more time to get Sarah to open up, to confess on her own terms, to give her an out. I didn't want to confront her with the cold hard facts immediately. I wanted to see if there was any flicker of conscience, any desire for honesty left in her. I made her favorite dinner, lasagna, and set the table nicely. We ate in relative silence, the tension in my chest building with every bite. After dinner, we moved to the living room. I turned off the television. "Sarah," I started, my voice softer than I intended. "Can we talk? Really talk?" She looked up from her phone, a slight frown forming. "Sure, John. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, exactly." I began, choosing my words carefully. "It's just, I've been thinking a lot lately about trust and honesty." She put her phone down. "Okay, go on." Her tone was guarded. "You know how important honesty is to me, right?" I continued. "In our marriage, in everything. I truly believe that the foundation of any strong relationship is built on complete transparency. No secrets, no lies." She nodded slowly. "Of course, John. I agree. Why are you saying this?" "'Cause sometimes," I said, looking directly into her eyes, "people make choices that might seem like a good idea at the time, or they get pressured into things, and they end up doing something that goes against their own values. Something they know isn't right, but they feel trapped." Her gaze flickered away for a moment, then back to mine. "Are you talking about something specific?" Her voice was tight. "I am talking in general," I lied, even as I was trying to talk about honesty. The irony was bitter, but also about us, about our relationship. "Is there anything at all that you feel you can't tell me? Anything you are holding back? Because if there is, I want you to know that you can tell me anything, no matter how difficult, no matter how bad you think it is. I promise, we can work through anything, as long as we're honest with each other." I watched her face intently. Her expression was unreadable at first. Then a slight shift. Her lips thinned, her eyes became colder. "Why are you pushing this, John?" she asked, her voice hardening. "Are you accusing me of something?" "No, Sarah, I am not accusing you. I am just opening the door, giving you a chance to clear your conscience, if tea here is anything weighing on it." She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. "Tea here is nothing weighing on my conscience, John. I don't know why you are being so strange. I've been completely honest with you. Always." "Always," I repeated softly. My voice was a challenge now, despite my intention to be gentle. She whirled around. "Yes, always. What is this about? Are you mad about Clara's necklace? Is that what this is?" My heart skipped a beat. She brought it up. "Clara's necklace?" I raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "What about?" "Don't play dumb, John," she snapped, a flash of anger in her eyes. "You've been quiet ever since Clara's birthday, and now you are talking about honesty and secrets. Are you implying something about the necklace I gave her?" "I am just wondering, Sarah," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "if you truly believe that gift was an act of complete honesty." She scoffed. "Of course it was. I wanted to make my sister happy. I gave her a beautiful, valuable gift. What's dishonest about that?" "Valuable." I let the word hang in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. She stared at me, her chest heaving slightly. "Yes, valuable. You bought it. You know its worth. Are you regretting that I gave it away? Is that what this is? Are you upset I gave away your gift?" Her voice rose. "It was our gift, Sarah." I corrected her gently but firmly. "A gift to you from me, representing us. Not something to be passed on, certainly not without discussion. And certainly not if it wasn't what it seemed. Her face went pale. The anger drained away, replaced by something I couldn't quite decipher. Fear. Realization? What are you talking about? She whispered. Her eyes darted around the room, avoiding mine. You know what I am talking about, Sarah, I said, my voice now devoid of any pretense. The necklace. The one you gave Clara. It wasn't the real one, was it? Silence. A thick, suffocating silence filled the room. Sarah stood frozen, her back to the window, her hands clenched at her sides. Finally she turned, her eyes wide, her face chalk white. How do you know? She stammered, her voice barely audible. Because I switched them out, Sarah, I said. The words tasting like ash in my mouth. Months ago, I had a replica made. The real one is safe, and you gave the fake to your sister. Her breath hitched. She sagged against the window frame as if her legs could no longer hold her. Her eyes filled with tears, not of remorse but of shock, of being caught. It wasn't the reaction I had hoped for. I had hoped for a confession, a breakdown, a plea for forgiveness. Instead, it was pure, unadulterated terror at being exposed. And that in itself was a new, crushing heartbreak. She still hadn't said why. She hadn't confessed without being prompted. She hadn't shown regret until she was cornered. And that realization, the cold hard fact that she would have continued the deception indefinitely if I hadn't pushed, hurt more than anything. Trust was not just broken. It felt like it had never truly existed. And I didn't know how, or if we could ever come back from that. The truth was out, but the reason behind it remained a terrifying mystery. Sarah stood there, frozen, staring at me as if I had just sprouted a second head. Color had completely drained from her face, leaving her looking ghostly pale. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. It was a terrifying silence, filled with the weight of shattered trust and unspoken truths. How could you? She finally whispered, her voice hoarse, barely audible. How could you switch them? Do you not trust me? The audacity of her question, the immediate deflection, infuriated me. My carefully constructed calm cracked. Trust you? I scoffed, unable to keep the bitterness out of my voice. Sarah, you just admitted to giving your sister a fake necklace, a replica of a significant gift I gave you, and you did it without a second thought. And you were going to let her believe it was real. And you were never going to tell me, and you are asking me about my trust. She flinched, as if I had struck her. Tears welled up in her eyes finally. But they were tears of self-pity, of being caught, not tears of genuine remorse. That's how it felt anyway, and that feeling twisted the knife deeper. It's not what you think, she mumbled, pushing herself off the window frame, taking a shaky step towards me. Then tell me, Sarah, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Tell me exactly what it is, because right now it looks like you deliberately deceived me, Clara, and everyone else. It looks like you are a liar. Don't call me a liar, she screamed suddenly, her voice cracking, her face twisted into a mask of hurt and anger. You don't understand. You never understand. Then make me understand, I shouted back, matching her volume. The calm, calculated confrontation I had planned had devolved into a raw, emotional explosion. Explain to me why you would give a fake, why you would lie, why you would betray my trust like this. She started to cry. Real tears now, big racking sobs that shook her whole body. She sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. Clara, she choked out, her words muffled by her hands. It's always Clara. My anger cooled slightly, replaced by a cold sense of dread. "What about Clara?" I asked, sitting on the opposite couch, leaning forward, desperate for answers. She slowly lifted her head, her face blotchy and tear-streaked. She was pressuring me. She needed money, a lot of money. "I offered to help her, Sarah," I reminded her, my voice sharp. "I told you I would help her," discreetly, "if she was in real trouble." "She wouldn't take it from you," Sarah cried. "She said you'd hold it over her head. She said she only trusted me." "So she pressured you into giving her my anniversary necklace?" I asked, disbelief warring with the horrific reality. Sarah shook her head wildly. "No, not exactly. She knew I had it. She saw it once when she was over. She said, 'Wow, that must be worth a fortune. If you ever needed to sell it, you'd be set.' It was just a casual comment at first, but it escalated, didn't it?" I prompted, my voice flat. "That phone call I overheard. She wanted you to sell it." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face again. "Yes, she got into a lot of debt, a gambling debt. She owes some really bad people a lot of money. She told me if she didn't get it, they would hurt her, or worse." She shuddered. "She said she had exhausted every other option. And then she brought out the necklace. She said, 'You have that necklace. That would cover it. Just sell it, Sarah. Please, no one needs to know.' And I said no. I told her I couldn't. I told her it meant too much to you." "So you gave her a fake instead?" I asked, the pieces of the puzzle fitting together, forming a picture that was uglier than I could have imagined. "I didn't know what else to do," she wailed. She was desperate. She was threatening to tell you about the debt, about everything. She said if I didn't help her, she'd ruin my life. She'd tell you about all the money I've given her over the years, all the times I've covered for her. She said she'd make me look like a fool, a bad sister, a liar. She had me backed into a corner, John. My mind reeled. Blackmail. Clara was blackmailing Sarah. And Sarah, instead of coming to me, instead of facing the truth, had resorted to another, bigger lie. "Why didn't you tell me any of this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why didn't you come to me about Clara's debt? About her blackmail? About any of it?" She looked up, her eyes wide and pleading. "Because I was ashamed, John. So ashamed. Of Clara, of me, of how much I've enabled her. I've been covering for her for years. Little things at first, then bigger things. She's always found a way to manipulate me. She'd threaten to tell Mom and Dad about something, or embarrass me in front of our friends. It just kept getting worse. And then this, the gambling debt. It was so much. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought you'd be so disappointed in me. I thought you'd leave me." Her confession hung in the air, thick with despair and regret. The heartbreak was now twofold. Not only had she lied and deceived me, but she had been living under the tyranny of her sister's manipulation for years, hiding a life of secrets from me. My wife, the woman I loved, had been silently suffering, feeling isolated and unable to confide in me. And that realization, the depth of her fear and her perceived helplessness, was crushing. It was a betrayal, yes, but it was also profound sadness for the burden she had carried alone. But was it enough to excuse her actions? To forgive the lie? The answer felt impossibly far away. Sarah's confession, delivered through sobs and choked words, unraveled years of unspoken tension and fear. The picture she painted was one of a woman trapped, not just by her sister's demands, but by her own shame and desire to maintain an image. "It started subtly," she explained, wiping furiously at her tear-streaked face. "When we were kids, Clara was always the fragile one. She had some health issues, nothing major, but enough to make our parents, incredibly protective, and she learned quickly how to use that. If she wanted something and Mom and Dad said no, she'd pretend to feel sick or get upset. They'd always cave. I listened, silently piecing together the bits of Clara's personality I had observed. Her demanding nature, her emotional outbursts. It all began to make a twisted kind of sense. As we got older, Sarah continued, her voice gaining a shaky momentum, it turned into emotional blackmail. If I didn't do what she wanted, she'd threaten to tell Mom and Dad about some minor misstep I made. Like when I crashed Mom's car in high school and didn't tell them, or when I copied my homework in college. Little things, but she made them seem huge, made me feel incredibly guilty. She'd say, "If you don't help me with X, I'll have to tell them about you," and she'd make it seem like she was doing me a favor by keeping my secrets, while demanding favors in return. My heart ached for her. Sarah, always the responsible one, always trying to do the right thing, caught in a web of her sister's make. Then it became about money, she admitted, wringing her hand. When we both moved out, Clara was always struggling. She'd come to me crying, saying she couldn't pay rent, or her car broke down, and I'd help. At first, I felt good about it, like a big sister helping her sibling. But then she'd get demanding. She'd call at all hours, threatening to show up at my work and make a scene if I didn't give her money immediately. Or she'd say she'd tell you about my secret little fund, which was just money I'd saved for a down payment on a car before we met, and how I was hoarding it while she suffered. She knew how much I valued your opinion, your trust. She knew I wouldn't want you to think I was irresponsible or deceitful. I was reeling. Sarah, my honest, transparent wife, had been living with this dark secret, this constant pressure for years. It explained so much. Her occasional mood swings, her guardedness about family matters, her fierce loyalty to Clara, even when Clara behaved badly. "But the gambling," I prompted. "That's new, and that's a different level of problem." She nodded, tears starting anew. "It started a few months ago. She got involved with some bad crowd," she said. "Lost a lot of money on online poker. It wasn't just her own money. It was money she owed to these loan sharks," she called them. They were threatening her. She showed me messages, pictures. It was terrifying, John. She was genuinely scared for her life. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about Clara being irresponsible anymore. This was serious. She said she needed $50,000 immediately, Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Or they were going to do something truly awful to her. And she said the only thing she had access to that was worth that much was the necklace. "But you told her no," I said, remembering her whispered phone call. "I did. I told her I couldn't. I told her it was yours. It meant so much to you, I couldn't possibly sell it. But she just kept pleading. She said, 'You have the real one, Sarah. You never wear it. Just for a little while, sell it, help me. And then when I get back on my feet, I'll buy you an even better one.'" She said she was desperate, that this was her last hope. And she said, if I didn't help her, she would tell you everything. Every secret I ever kept, every lie I told to cover for her, every penny I gave her. She said she'd tell you I had been lying to you for years, that I was a terrible person, and she knew you'd leave. Sarah looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen, filled with a raw, desperate fear. I was terrified, John. I honestly thought, if you knew everything, you'd hate me. You'd see me as weak, as a liar, as someone who enabled a gambling addict. I didn't know what to do. I was between a rock and a hard place. I couldn't let Clara get hurt, but I couldn't sell your necklace. and I couldn't bear the thought of losing you.
So you gave her the fake?
I finished, the words heavy in the air. She nodded, a fresh wave of sobs racking her body. It was the only thing I could think of. I knew you had the replica. I saw you put it in my jewelry box that day, and I saw you put the real one in your safe. I figured I could give her the fake, buy myself some time, get her to calm down, and then maybe I could come clean to you eventually. Or figure out a way to solve her debt without involving you. It was a desperate, stupid, cowardly choice. I know that now. I am so sorry, John. I didn't know what else to do. Her confession was agonizing to hear. It wasn't the cold, calculated deception I had initially imagined. It was fear. It was a woman driven to desperate measures by years of emotional abuse and the sudden, terrifying threat of physical harm to her sister, coupled with the crushing fear of losing me. The heartbreak shifted. It was no longer just about my betrayal, but about Sarah's suffering. My wife, whom I loved fiercely, had been living a secret life, carrying a terrible burden, convinced that she couldn't confide in me, that I would judge her or leave her. That she felt she had to resort to such a drastic lie instead of turning to me. Her husband was the deepest cut of all. It meant somewhere along the line, she felt our bond wasn't strong enough to withstand her truth. And that, more than anything, broke my heart. The aftermath of Sarah's confession hung heavy in the air, a thick blanket of pain and unanswered question. We sat in silence for a long time after she finished speaking, only the sound of her ragged breaths filling the quiet room. My mind was reeling, trying to process everything she had revealed. Clara's blackmail, the years of manipulation, the staggering gambling debt, and Sarah's profound fear of losing me, of revealing her perceived weakness. Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me? I finally asked, my voice raw. Why did you think I would leave you? She looked up, her eyes still red and swollen. Because I felt so foolish, so weak. I'd been letting her walk all over me for years, and I knew how much you valued honesty, how much you hated deceit. I thought if you saw how easily I was manipulated, how I'd kept this secret from you for so long, you'd lose respect for me. You'd see me as a fraud. Sarah, I said, my voice heavy with emotion, I love you. I married you. I would never have left you for something like this. Not if you had come to me, told me the truth, sought help. We face things together, that's what marriage is. She just shook her head, tears starting again. I know, I see that now. But at the time, all I could see was losing everything. I panicked. We talked for hours that night, long into the early morning. She poured out everything. Specific instances of Clara's demands, the amounts of money she had secretly given her, the constant fear of exposure. It was a painful, exhaustive accounting of a life lived under duress. And the more she spoke, the more I understood the depth of her despair, the sheer terror she must have felt to resort to such a drastic lie. Didn't excuse it, not entirely, but it provided a context that shifted my anger into a profound sadness. The immediate concern was Clara. What about Clara now? I asked. She still has the fake, and she's expecting me to give her an appraisal certificate for the real one. We have to tell her the truth, Sarah. This can't go on. Sarah flinched. No, John, please. She'll freak out. She'll be furious. And she'll still need that money. Those people, they don't mess around. If she doesn't get it, she's in real danger. Then we need to get her help, I insist. Real help. Not just throwing money at her problems, especially if it means putting you through this hell. She needs professional help for her gambling, and we need to deal with these loan sharks. Sarah looked terrified. But if she finds out about the fake, she'll know I betrayed her too. She might expose everything to Mom and Dad, make a huge scene, ruin our family. She's already ruined our family, Sarah, I said, my voice firm. Or at least she's trying to. She blackmailed you into this. This isn't just a family secret anymore. This is criminal behavior on her part. And it's destroying you. And it's hurting our marriage. We have to deal with it head on. The thought of confronting Clara, of revealing the fake necklace, of bringing up the gambling debt and the threats was daunting. But I knew it was necessary. We couldn't live like this, under the constant threat of discovery, with a fundamental lie at the core of our relationship. The trust between us was shattered. It lay in pieces around us, gleaming sharply like broken glass. Could it be rebuilt? I didn't know. I loved Sarah. That was undeniable. My heart ached for her pain, for the years she had suffered in silence. The deception, the willingness to hide such a significant part of her life from me, that was a wound that ran deep. It made me question her judgment, her strength, her belief in us as a team. The path ahead felt impossibly difficult. We would have to confront Clara, deal with her debts and her manipulation. We would have to rebuild our own trust, piece by painful piece. Sarah would need to understand that true strength comes from vulnerability, from confiding in the person who loves you, not from hiding behind a facade of perfection. And I would have to find a way to forgive her. Not just the act, but the underlying fear that prevented her from trusting me with her truth. It felt like the end of something, an ending to the blissful, naive chapter of our marriage. But it also felt like a beginning, a chance to rebuild on a foundation of raw, unvarnished honesty. But it wouldn't be easy. The heartbreak of that night, the shattered illusions, would forever be etched into the fabric of our lives. Path to healing, if there was one, would be long, arduous, and filled with the ghosts of past deceptions. My stomach churned at the thought of. The sun crept through the curtains, casting pale light onto the living room floor, where Sarah and I had talked all night. Exhaustion weighted every limb, but sleep felt impossible. The air was still thick with the residue of confession, of painful truths. Sarah had eventually fallen asleep, curled up on the couch, her face tear-stained but peaceful in slumber. I watched her, a mix of love, pity, and a lingering hurt swirling inside me. She looked so vulnerable, so fragile. I understood her fear now. The years of conditioning by Clara's manipulation. But understanding didn't automatically heal the wound of betrayal. The conversation with Clara loomed. It wouldn't be easy. She would be furious, humiliated. She would lash out. But it had to be done. We couldn't let her continue to dictate Sarah's life or our lives. I resolved to be the one to talk to her, with Sarah by my side. It was time for Clara to face the consequences of her actions, and for Sarah to finally be free. But the biggest battle, I knew, was not with Clara. It was within our marriage. The real necklace, the one safely tucked away in the bank, felt like a metaphor for our relationship. Precious, valuable, but hidden away, unable to be worn, unable to truly shine because of the deception that surrounded it. Could we ever go back to the way things were? Probably not. The innocence was gone. The image I had of my perfect, transparent marriage was shattered. I saw Sarah now, not just as my wife, but as a complex person, with hidden vulnerabilities, with a history of carrying burdens alone. And I saw myself as someone who had unknowingly pushed her into that isolation, by perhaps not creating an environment where she felt safe enough to share her deepest fears and shames. That thought stung. I got up quietly and walked to the window. The world outside was waking up, oblivious to the emotional earthquake that had rocked our home. A lone bird chirped, and a car drove by. Life moved on. But for us, everything had shifted. The heartbreak wasn't just about the lie of the necklace. It was about the revelation of a deep, silent struggle my wife had endured. It was about the trust that had fractured the secret life she felt compelled to lead. It was about the painful realization that the person you thought you knew completely, truly, had depths and complexities you never imagined. And those depths held pain, fear, and a capacity for deception born of desperation. I knew we would try to work through this.
Sarah had expressed remorse.
True remorse. Once the initial shock of being caught wore off, she had promised to go to therapy, to address her patterns with Clara, to rebuild our trust. And I, for my part, knew I had to open myself more, to ensure she never felt so isolated again, that she resorted to such a drastic measure. But the road ahead was long and uncertain. Forgiveness doesn't happen overnight. Trust doesn't magically reappear. It would be a painstaking process full of difficult conversations, relapses, and moments of doubt. I would have to wrestle with my own feelings of betrayal, my anger, and my profound sadness. The necklace, the real one, would remain in the bank for now. It felt too tainted, too heavy with the weight of deceit, to ever wear again, at least not soon. Maybe someday it could be a symbol of resilience, of a love that survived, was broken, and then carefully, painstakingly put back together. But today, it was a reminder of a heartbreaking truth. My wife gave her sister a fake diamond necklace. And in doing so, she unwittingly revealed a fake version of herself that she felt compelled to wear, and shattered the illusion of our perfect, untroubled love. And the real heartbreak was not just the lies, but the unspoken pain that led to them. It was a bleak horizon, but one we would have to face, together, one agonizing step at a time. The story wasn't over, but the happy fairy tale ending had been irrevocably rewritten. And all I felt was a profound, lingering ache in my chest.